And your own.
Good morning. I'd like to call this, it's 9:02. I'd like to call this board meeting of the Animal Services Center to order. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I ask Becky to determine that we have a quorum, please.
Certainly. Board Member Macias is absent. Board Member Ward?
Present.
Board Member Bencomo?
Present.
Board Member Flores is absent. Board Member Sanchez is absent. Board Member Shalo Hernandez, I believe, is en route. Board Member Graham?
Present.
Chair Curran?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And just as a quick note, for those of you who pay attention to who's on the board, the city underwent an election, and former Mayor Pro Tem Gandra left the board, so Councillor Graham has subbed in for her at the moment. So thank you for being here this morning. Welcome. I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved, Graham.
Second, Bencomo.
It's been moved by Board Member Graham and seconded by Board Member Bencomo. Becky, please.
Board Member Ward?
Yes.
Board Member Bencomo?
Yes.
Board Member Graham?
Yes.
Chair Curran?
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you, Becky. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for approval of the December 21st meeting.
Motion to approve, Bencomo.
So, moved by Board Member Bencomo. You don't actually have to have been there to.
Second, Graham.
Thank you. Seconded by Board Member Graham. Any notes on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none. Becky, please.
Board Member Ward?
Yes.
Board Member Bencomo?
Yes.
Board Member Graham?
I'll abstain as I wasn't present.
Chair Curran?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up, we have someone on the phone. So we're looking forward to hearing about the public sector, from the public sector personnel consultant study that the ASCMV did. So I think, Clint, you're going to facilitate this. Board Member Bencomo, I think you also have some insight as well. So thank you both. And please introduce the person who's on the phone. And I think Adrian will help us bring them in.
Thank you very
so
much.
that we can hear them.
First of all, Mr. Longmire, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Fantastic, thank you. My name is Clint Thacker, Executive Director, Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley. About probably a good 6 months ago, the ASCMV board requested that a study be done on where we fall as far as our salaries and compensations for our employees. So we teamed up with the city of Las Cruces, see who they do it through. They pointed us to the public sector consultant or personnel consultants. We contacted them. Mr. Longmire reached out to us. We were able to get on contract with them, and they performed the study. Results came in towards the middle to end of December, and he has presented these findings to the Finance Committee and felt it was only right for the board in its entirety to see how this compensation study came out. So with that, I turn the time over to Mr. Longmire. Again, this is for the board's information. There's no implementation at this point. This is just the findings of this. We will be coming back to the board with some implementation ideas in the coming next few months. So Mr. Longmire, with that, the time is yours.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate the time. It was sounding like I was having some technical issues, so I'll leave my camera off just for latency purposes. But as Clint said, my name is Bob Longmire with Public Sector Personnel Consultants. We are the ones who did the compensation study for the Animal Services Board. So today I thought I'd run through a little bit of the results of the study, the purpose behind a study, why you conduct a study, what the purposes are, as well as the results of the study, and then review some of the implementation options, kind of our recommendations to move from where you are now to where you want to be. So we'll talk about a couple of those options, introduce some of those, and maybe look through some of those ideas. So As Clint mentioned, our firm is Public Sector Personnel Consultants, and this is really all that we do. We do maybe 30 or 40 studies a year, travel around. I do a lot of work in the California, Los Angeles area, but also there, a lot of work in Texas. I did the city of Dallas, and also the city of Las Cruces. So the room you're sitting in, I'm very familiar with. We handed out PAQs. We met with employees, we met with groups. So I've been in that room several times to talk about the city's classification and compensation studies. So one of the things that I'll kind of allude to or give a little bit of a spoiler on is we're recommending the same actions that the city took. So following the same industry standard methods that the city took, not treating the district any different, but following the same guidelines and implementation strategies from the city. So we'll get there in a little bit, but that's just kind of high level where we're at. So maybe the one sentence takeaway here of why you do a study is to be able to recruit and retain quality staff. That's the purpose. So if we think about recruitment, we want to make sure we have a competitive salary range that we can advertise for the work. So when we go out and we look to hire and there's a job posting, we want the range that that job is in to be competitive. You know, every job has a salary range minimum and a salary range maximum that's established by the organization. Now, it's been several years since the Animal Services District has implemented a new or adopted the salary schedule. So the existing one is a little bit out of date, and you're a little bit behind on the salary schedule just based on the fact that it's been a while since you've implemented and updated one. But we'll get there in a second. Then a little bit of where we are just globally in the market, and I don't think I'm, saying anything that you guys don't already know here, but NeoGov, the site that hosts the applications for most of the public sector organizations, they released a white paper that said there's been a 40% increase in the number of open positions in the public sector. There's also been a 60% decrease in the total of number applications. So I got more jobs and I have less people applying for those jobs. On average, nationwide, if you get 4 qualified employees for an open position, that's now the national average. This is down from 12 qualified applicants just a couple years ago. So we have a very competitive job market. There's more open jobs, there's more competition, and there's less people who are applying to do the work. I think some of this is driven by the fact that this cost of living and inflation is becoming a national conversation. You can't turn on the news without seeing conversations about, the Department of Labor and the statistics and the inflation that's occurring. So all of this is creating a very competitive job market where wages and rates and having a competitive rate for the work that's performed is becoming more critical. So with that in mind, we went out and did the salary survey. We wanted to be able to answer the question, where are you? How do you stack up against the market? Now, when we talk about the market, now obviously not everybody has animal shelter, not everybody has all the same services. So we had to go and look and to find similar services out in the market. We started with the approved list of comparators that the city used for their study, and then added on other counties in the state of New Mexico, and then a couple other cities in the in Texas there in the area that had similar services. So the idea was we wanted to be able to answer the question, where are we? We also included the city and the county for applicable jobs. So, think IT, finance, facilities, jobs that are, universal and exist elsewhere. We use that data for those jobs. Now, I'll say before I flip over to the slide that has the results on it, I want to give a little bit of a note. You're more behind on paper than you are on payroll. And I'll explain that sentence here in a little bit. But the results of the survey are comparing your salary schedule to the market. So what is your rate versus what's the market rate? Now, it turns out that because your salary schedule is out of date, a new one hasn't been adopted in several years, your rates were behind. But in order to hire people, in order to remain competitive, you had to hire them further into the ranges. So your ranges look more behind than payroll. So I just want to say that so there's not like sticker shock when we start to go through this here. So on average, when we look out at the market, the Animal Services Center is on average 28% behind at midpoint of the existing salary schedule. Now, like I said, I think the big driver behind this is your current salary schedule is out of date. It hasn't been updated. The city has moved, the county has moved, and we're just kind of like administratively paperwork behind here. So the first thing I'll say there is that does not mean we need to spend 28% of payroll and do a 28% COLA. Some jobs are further behind, some jobs aren't as far behind. We'll get there in a little bit about what this looks like and what it costs, but it's not 28% of payroll. So, and then like I said before, we're going to recommend following the same implementation strategy as the city in their salary study. So the first thing to do, kind of step number one in responding to the market, step number one should be use the city's new and updated salary schedule. So just take the new schedule that the city has and use that as the framework. So that's kind of step one. Step two would be place jobs onto that salary schedule based on market. So we look at where the job is now on the old schedule. We look at the new schedule and we look at the market rate. We look at the midpoint, so right in the middle, and we say, which range should this job be in? Should it be in a range 5, a range 6, or a range 7? And then put that job into the new salary schedule based on market, okay? Now this gets back to being able to recruit new employees. So now when we move a job and we put it into the new range 6, for example, or range 7 or whatever the market dictates, that allows us to go out and advertise for a new higher rate. Okay, so that's step two. Step three is about retention. We don't want to forget about our existing employees. We don't want to move the ranges and give employees nothing. We don't want to get a hometown discount on our existing employees. We don't want to value new employees more than existing employees. So we want to have a method to now move new existing employees through that new range based on time in job. So we look at the payroll file and we say, okay, if you've been, a veterinary tech for 2 years, we want to move you through that new range. The pace at which we move employees really dictates how large of an increase existing employees see. So we copied the pace that was used for the city, and that would get an employee to midpoint in 10 years. So the way to think about it is somebody has 0 years in that job, they're brand new. I'm okay with them sitting on minimum. The entry of the range. You just got the job, you're new at the job. I'm okay if you're at minimum. If you have 10 years of experience, I want you in the middle of the range, halfway between minimum and maximum, right there at salary range midpoint. If you have 5 years, you're halfway between min and mid. So you kind of just see how it creates a line. It creates a slope that goes from minimum to maximum in 20 years. And you draw a slope, and then you just make sure everybody is above that line. So that's step three. Step four is then we go back and we look over everything we've done on the payroll file. And we make sure every employee gets at least 4% as a result of the study. So think of COLA. We make sure that everybody's getting something. So if we look over this and we place your job in a new salary range and we moved you through that new range based on market, and you only got 2%, we would give you an additional 2% to make sure everybody got at least 4. Ironically, this is one of the least expensive parts of this. It doesn't actually cost very much to do this last portion. So I think it's a good thing just to make sure everybody's seeing something as a result of the study. So the final bullet point here, kind of the last note, is doing all 4 of those things. Doing all of those steps results in about $150,000 in salary increases. That comes out to about 7.5% of payroll. So we said you're 28% behind on the survey, but you can fix that for 7.5%, 8% of payroll. So that's where that sentence, you're more behind on paper than on payroll, comes from. So as decision makers, you kind of have the ability to adjust or, pull these different levers, these 4 steps. If you adjust them differently, we get different results based on market. So for example, I think you should do step 1, utilize the city's new salary schedule. I don't think it makes much sense to create your own, from an administrative purpose, do step 1. The city maintains the HR, does those things. It's just easy. Then step 2, placing jobs onto the salary schedule based on market. If the price tag is a little bit too much, you can adjust and be like, okay, we're going to be a little bit behind market this year, but next year we're going to get caught up. So you can always phase it in a little bit. I'll always express a little bit of caution, when doing that. We don't want to send a message to the employees unintentionally that, we're okay paying them under market. So making sure we communicate everything appropriately becomes really important with some of those different options. But I'll say all of that to say, we want to get caught up to market. My final note that I don't have a bullet point on, and then I'll stop and take any questions. My final note is this gets us caught up to market. The market's going to keep moving. So next October, right? So October of 2024, Texas will be in their new budget season and they'll give increases. A lot of them give increases in October. Some of them give it in January of 25. Some of them will do it in June of 25. My point is the market keeps moving. So you want to implement the study. And then in addition to that, in future years, make sure you're giving COLAs and increases to the employees to keep pace with the market. Otherwise, in 3 or 4 years, you'll be 10% behind again. So we do the study to get caught up, and then we do COLAs in future years to remain caught up and remain competitive with a market that's always moving and always increasing. One of the ways you could do that is just look at what the city gave as a COLA and what the county gave as a COLA and just average those 2 numbers. Since you're split ownership, you could just say, all right, if the city gave 4 and the county gave 3, we're giving 3.5. Or, you could go and look at these 15 comparators out in the market and look at the COLA they gave out in the market and do that. So there's a couple different ways to remain current, depending on which ones you guys, choose administratively. But I would say, you want to get caught up through the study, then remain caught up in future years. So that's what I have for today. I will leave this slide up here. If there's any questions, let me know. I'll pause here for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. First, I'll open it up to the board for questions and comments. Board Member Graham.
Hi, thank you so much. Really appreciated this information. I don't know if this is data that you can provide or maybe Clint. What is our current, what's the landscape for how long employees are staying with ASCMV? So in other words, what % employees are kind of in that 1 to 4 years? How many in that 5 to 10? Is this question making sense?
It is, yes. I would have to open up the Excel file and look that up. I can do that if you want to give me about a minute. I can answer that question.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then just comments, as important as recruitment is, and you're obviously speaking to what I'm keying in on here, equally important, if not more, is retention. So how are we doing at keeping a core set of employees who are really immersed in the culture, are sticking with the position or their positions, or advancing long term? So I'm just trying to get a sense of that. I'm the brand new board member, so this may be things we've discussed in the past and I'm just not aware.
I would let Clint ask that one about retention and the culture and where you're at right now. I'm looking up the time and job statistics right now. So I'll have a number for you here pretty soon.
Thank you, Board Member Graham, Clint Thacker. So it all depends on the job. The higher up the employee gets, the longer the longevity that they stay, the retention, better the retention. Animal caregivers, they have historically a hard time retaining them. Partly of that is the pay was really low. We were around, I think 1150 is what we were starting when I came on. That's been increased now. With the last budget year, we committed to hiring people on at $15 an hour, and that has helped. But the job is really hard. So I'd have to go by job as far as retention, and I can get that information to you. But that's the best I have currently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
so I opened up the payroll file. Half, 26 employees have less than 2 years experience, 2 years since their hire date. So half of our employees have less than 2 years. The other half have more. The average of all employees is 6.5, but that skews heavy towards, like Clint was saying, when I look at the job titles of new employees, it's animal caregiver, it's vet surgical assistant, it's animal caregiver, animal care, animal tech. You know, it's those jobs that he had alluded to are new jobs. So half of our people have less than 2 years. Our average employee on the payroll file has 3.9.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Corin.
Thank you, Board Member Graham. Other questions or notes from folks on the board? Board
Madam
Member
Chair.
Shajo Hernandez, please.
Sorry for being absent, but I did make it. Just a question on the study. Is this study something that we're going to be looking at for mid-year review, or is this something for next budgetary review, taking action? What are we looking at?
Thank you, Clint Thacker again. So that's the recommendations we're going to be coming forward. It's going to be in multiple recommendations. We have been trending to have some salary savings coming up, so we thought maybe we could take some of it this budget year, ask for some in the coming budget year. It's a mix and match of options that we're going to present.
So my sense is some of this is going to come sooner to us, which you know, you've heard our commitment to, you know, sort of making sure that everyone is being paid at a certain level. But I think sort of to Chris's point, in the budget conversation, I think we would really like to, because the number 156,000, which I assume is over 10 years, so that's 1.5 million over 10 years, sounds like not very much in the scheme of municipal budgeting, not to sound like, you know, we've upped the Animal Services Board but budget about 300,000, I think, over the last 2 years. So in the scheme of what we typically consider as budget increases, I would hope that in the upcoming budget conversation, we would see at a minimum a number of these things prioritized and reflected. And then I know that there are some positions that retention is really important, but there are some things that we really have been asking for or hoping for, including increased veterinary capacity. So I think there are some things that I would hope that could be prioritized to definitely be included in the upcoming budget. And that I think that this gives a lot of credence to some of those ideas and will help with structuring that, I hope, so.
Yes, so the paperwork has been submitted for our budget and finalized, and this is our number one priority, is this increase. That's number one. You have to rank them, and that's the first one.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Madam Chair, sorry, I might have missed this. So I see that it says that insured employees receive at least 4%, but then I heard that if Doñana County is at 3 and the city of Las Cruces is at 4, meet in the middle at 3.5. So is the 4% to go into fiscal year 24 and then 25 on would be splitting the baby, or how is that going to work? Where does that conversation come in?
I'll just say how I interpreted this, and you guys can tell me. How I interpreted this is, in the future, to not get so far behind, their recommended minimum is 4%. But if because we don't always consider COLAs, if we're in the realm to negotiate it, then we might consider looking to what the baby looks like and how we split it. But my sense is this 4% is a recommendation that would not let us get into this sort of way behind position again. Is that accurate from what you understand, or what our consultants?
Yes, it is, with an additive that the 4% is a way to give something to everybody in this adjustment period. In this adjustment we're talking about now, because we're moving job classifications, and so some people might only get a 2%, but some people may get a 6% increase in their jobs. It depends on where they are at. And so that's what the 4% is everybody will get at least a 4% for their job.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I just want to note that the county actually provided a 5% increase for the non-unionized workforce at the county, and depending on the individual union contracts, probably a higher percentage for the public safety. And again, staying in unison with the recommendations that are being made in order to keep our workforce at a competitive salary range.
All right, thank you. And I think the city has a similar sort of spread of raises that have gone in the last 2 years. I think over time I don't know, Barbara might be able to speak more to that, but I think ours is pretty parallel to that. So this would be in line with that.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have those similar increases, and you'll recall we did some things separately from the market implementation of the salary increases related to base level minimum wage efforts. So that was the first initiative over the last couple of years that we did, raising that to the $15 an hour and then adjusting for compression throughout the pay bands. And then we had the market study implementation as well. So we've done a number of things over that last couple of years, but they certainly align. And as Bob laid out, our approach is similar to what he's recommending today.
Thank you. Do you have any other last insights, Clint? Okay,
Well, I'm sorry. Other than special thank you to Mr. Longmire and his insights that he's done. A lot of work went into this. And also thank you for the board comments. I think it sounds like things are very positive moving forward for this increase to give the ASCMV staff working more towards a living wage is what we like to do. And also to note, we're talking about increases done throughout the year. That's why we're not at the 28% behind, is because we have done increases through the years. But this is more of a way to increase the job classifications and realigning and give those adjustments. So thank you.
Thank you. And if you, oh no, your report is after. So thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to city and county ACO reports. I don't know who wants to go first. Okay, Brian, please come on up. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Longmire. You are free, I think, to go. If we can go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. We appreciate you. Mr. Halsey, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Brian Halsey. I'm the caseworker for Doñana County Animal Control, here to to give the December 2023 county report. For our reported stray animals, we had 305 reported stray animals. Out of the stray animals, we were able to pick up 174 stray animals that we picked up. Out of that was 25 stray cats and 149 stray dogs. We ended up picking up 10 sick or injured animals. It was 2 cats and 8 dogs. And for December, we had 24 owner surrender animals, and they were all dogs. This is our reported stray animal calls for the last 4 years. And this is our 4-year field return to owner comparison chart for the last 4 years. For the month of December, we had 39. If you see at the very end of that graph, we added something for the end of the year for you guys. That is our totals for every year. That way you could see a comparison of what they were. For this year, we didn't have as much as I would like, but we did do better than the year before that, so at least we're seeing an increase. Hopefully we could get it back to the years of 2020 and 2021, and I'll go further in that at the end of the presentation. Additional animals picked up. Again, we had 24 owner surrender dogs. We had 0 owner surrender cats. We had 10 sick or injured animals. We had 6 animals for welfare hold. For those that are new on the board, a welfare hold, sorry, I can't speak today. Welfare hold is if a sheriff's unit, border patrol, or anybody else detains someone and they have an animal or animals in their possession at that time, they call us to go pick up the animals for a welfare hold. And so that's what those are. We had 0 for neglect, abuse, cruelty. We had 7 shelter quarantines. We had 3 home quarantines. We had 5 cases at the time for December. We're currently holding 3 live evidence dogs and cats awaiting court proceedings at the time of this presentation. We had 0 rabies submissions. We had 17 diverted intakes. Those are if someone calls in and they find a dog or a cat and it's chipped, but they want to hold on to the animal and we don't have to pick it up and take it to the shelter or something like that, to the Animal Service Center in Mesilla Valley. Those are diverted intakes, means that they didn't cross the threshold of the Animal Services Center. For education, we had 472, and our total calls for the month of December was 731. Oops, I'm back. All right. So this is our animals picked up per district. Again, we have our hot areas. Our hot areas for right now are trending about the same as they've been all year. Usually District 2, District 4, District 5, and 7. Those are usually our big areas. And these are our stray cats picked up by district. I'll leave these a little longer since I know we have new people. And these are our stray dogs picked up by district. Again, District 7 is usually one of our hot areas. As you can see, that one's usually one of our highest ones every month. And these are reasons for owner surrenders for the 24 animals. We had 6 of them that they just weren't able to take care of them. We had 2 that were aggressive. We had 2 that were either sick, old, or injured. We had 5 that were either vicious or they were involved in livestock attacks. We had 2 where they were unable to keep them on their property, and they decided they just didn't need to have them. And we had 7 that they were unable to handle the animals. And this is a slide that we added for you guys since it's the end of the year, new year. So the end of year 2023, our total stray calls were 3,421. Our stray cats picked up were 216. Our stray dogs picked up were 613. For our field return to owners, if our officers picked up an animal and they were able to find some sort of identification and give them back to the owner in the field, was 314, and our total calls of service for the year 2023 was 8,832. And at that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Board members, any questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Halsey. Supervisor Jimenez, please come on up. Thank you. Chaparral.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning. Welcome.
My name is Gino Jimenez. I'm the Animal Control Supervisor for the City of Las Cruces, and I will present to you our, if I can get to it, our report for December 23. So for the month of December, we responded to 477 reported strays. 213 of those were GOA. GOA means gone on arrival, meaning the officer had no contact with that animal. We were able to apprehend 264 animals. 205 of those were impounded at the Animal Service Center. 152 were dogs, and 53 were cats. We were able to successfully field RTO 59 animals. Those are animals that never crossed the threshold of the Animal Service Center, and they were returned back to their owners. We were unsuccessful in field RTOing 18. Those were animals that had some sort of identification. However, we weren't able to return them out in the field, and I'll go through that in a slide in here a little bit. So we had a total of 77 identifiable animals. Next slide, and like what county did, what Brian did, is December is also going to give us our totals for the year. So if you can see it on the far right would be our grand total for the year. Like I said, we responded to 477 calls for strays for December, bringing us to a grand total of 6,026 for the year. Again, this is one of my peak performance goals. The goal is to secure 65% of all reported strays. For the month of December, we were able to secure 61.2 of those strays. My next slide is our 3-year field RTO comparison. Again, we were able to field RTO 59 animals, bringing us to a grand total of 564 for the year. This is my second peak performance goal, which we try to obtain 25% of all strays returned to their owners in the field. We were able to do 15.2 for the month. Our community cat program. This is a different slide. For the month of December, we responded to 43 cats and traps. We were able to release 8 of those. For the year, it gives us a grand total of 737 calls for cats and traps, and we were able to release 136 community cats back to the area that they came from. Now remember, these are cats that have already been identified as community cats. They're spayed, neutered, vaccinated, microchipped, and ear-tipped. So those cats, again, never crossed the threshold of the Animal Service Center because they met the requirements as community cats. Next slide is the reasons for owner surrendering or owner releasing animals. 4 were for health issues, 2 were euthanasia requests. 4 dogs, owners could not keep in the yard. 3 dogs, the owner had too many. 3 dogs for aggression. 3 dogs, the owners could no longer afford to care for them. 3 cats, the owner evicted the tenant and they were unable to care for them. 2 dogs, the landlord or housing would not allow on their property. 3 cats for health issues and they could not afford vet care. 1 dog for being old as a euthanasia request. 1 dog is injured in a dog fight. This was an incident where the dog owners' dogs fought each other and 1 was severely injured. 1 dog, the owner was in the hospital and could no longer care for it upon their release. And 1 cat, the owner was moving and could not take it with him. Finally, our reasons we were unable to field RTO, like I said in the previous slide, was 18. And fortunately or unfortunately, The 18 was no contact by phone or at the residence. So here is the number 3 and number 4 peak performance goals. Number 3 is a 10% reduction of stray animal bites. This is one of the goals that we try to attain. For the month of December, there was a 7.3% increase in stray animal bites. So we went from 136 this year, or in 2023, to 126 in 2022. A 10% reduction in owner-victim bites. There was a 7.3% increase as well. So we had 95 reported strays, owner-victim bites for 2023, and 88 for 2022. So our monthly, December monthly calls for service, we responded to 1,007 calls for the month, bringing us to a grand total for the year at 13,962 calls for the year. Highlights for the month. Remembering that December was Christmas, a holiday season, we had 3 ACOs participate in the Shop with a Cop program at the Walmart Walton location. This was an opportunity for the ACOs to do a little bit of shopping with some children that were less fortunate. Had a really good impact on these kids, able to walk through the store with them and create a little bond between animal control and these children. All 8 ACOs also attended 4 hours of traffic control training. This was required because as we're out in the field, driving around doing our job, we sometimes run into an accident. And we were able to direct traffic that way to keep it safe for police so that they can get in there and do what they need to do, but at least divert traffic away from them to avoid causing a bigger accident. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Supervisor Jimenez.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none? All right, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Clint?
Good morning, Board of Directors. Quint Thacker, Executive Director, Animal Care and Control. Animal Services Center. It was a blast. Whoops, a blast from the past. Give you today a recap of our December. So currently at the center right now, we have 348 animals. This is as of yesterday for the ASCMV. As you can see, it's right in line there with 2023 at this time, and a little bit lower than 2022. This is how the animals came into, this is the number of animals that came into the center in December, 570 dogs and 169 cats for a total of 756 animals in the month of December. And this is how they came in. As usual, our biggest ones are animal control, brought in 402. That was 53% of our total that came in December. The next one, strays by the public. They find an animal, they bring it to us. And then we talk with them about that. And then the next one is always a surprise. To me, the last 6 years I've been here, and this is so much, is the owner surrender. And it's only 1% lower than our number 2 reason they're brought in, with 18% of the total animals coming from owner surrenders. We did have some returns in the month of December. December is kind of December and also January are kind of a higher time for returns because people get animals thinking their spouse or significant other or girlfriend or boyfriend are gonna love these animals, and people say no, so they come back. We don't look at this as a negative thing. We look at a chance to gather the information that they give us. So that's what we look at with the reasons for returns, is we know more about these 13 animals. For instance, dogs, 5 of them were behavior problems. So we now know when somebody comes to adopt that animal, he says there are some behavior issues with this, and we can list it out of why what behaviors that animal had. So all good things come from animals being out of the center. We appreciate that. This is our diverted intake. So anytime an animal comes to the center, our number one goal is to not have the animal come to the center. As funny as that sounds, but less animals we can keep out of the center, the better our population is, the healthier, and the population is down. So somebody comes in, a divided intake is like, for instance, let's say a public person brings a stray animal to us. We say, we encourage you to go for a walk with the animal, put signs up. Same thing with an animal that somebody doesn't want anymore, like the owner surrenders. Go for, put in a vest, here's an adoption vest, put in a vest on, go for a walk around the parks. Tell people it's available for adoption. We give resources. Any of those are all counted as diverted intakes. So in other words, other options. So this is how those animals, the 700, came or left the center. So 28% were adopted, almost 29%. We have reclaims, so somebody came and got their animal back from us, is 17.5%, which is a really good number. Rescued is 24%, so almost a quarter of all those animals were rescued, which is, you can look at that, is right about in the norm for their community cats, was 47 of them, and then our euthanasia, 31.5%. Is the highest percentage there of how animals left the center. Our live release rate is the rate that the animals left alive the center, so it's 71% there. This is our transfers. This is up 483. As you can see, it's all across the board here, dogs, cats, and others. We appreciate the local and also the outlying areas or outlying places that we go to that take our animals. Our euthanasia reason, again, the number one reason for euthanasia right now is space behavior, and this is for dogs. So if there's behavior issues with the animal, usually we do have a reason. If we had room, we would keep it, work on the behaviors, but for being so full as we are that right now, those cannot be held on to. The next one is the aggression, as you can see there for dogs. Number one reason is respiratory signs for cats. This is non-treatment, so in other words, they come in with it, we euthanize. This is surgeries. Year to date, they've done 4,000, I should say year to date for December, 4,026 phenomenal numbers. You can see there that it was a hard month, a big month for December. We're thankful for all that they do. Again, you see the shelter foster number there is really high on that lime green. That is for December. So. Volunteers, we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. 609 animal hours total donated to us, 179 active volunteers, and the dog walking team and cat team are amazing, coming in and walking animals from both centers there. Our total visitors, again, we were really close to coming up for all-time high, but 1,634. The opening of the new center was a big bump for us, and people coming in not only to see that, but also to see the animals at our facility. Total website views through 35,522. Again, for those that are just seeing this for the first time, those are website views, not original hits. So if somebody wants to see an animal, they go to the page where the adoptable animals are, that's one view. And if they see an animal, that's another view. And then they click back to the original page, that's another view. And then they choose another animal, that's another view. So those are page views for that. But 35,522 is a fantastic number. Total Facebook views, again, almost hit all-time high, 18,764. This is most likely contributed to, one, Henry. He's very popular. If we do anything with our cat, Sir Henry, people are all over it. And two, we had our Facebook events that are on there listed, and then also our partnership with Doña Ana County. That was the Home for the Holidays, was also a big push on Facebook as well. Some of our upcoming events, we have adoptions at Village Hardware coming up on February 3rd, February 10th, adoptions at Petco, February 17th, adoptions at PetSmart, and February 24th, adoptions at Tractor Supply for that. We do have our big drive-through clinic coming up. The ASCMV vaccination clinic will be February 25th. We're very excited about this one. It's going to be big, another big one. We have McCune Foundation has been gracious enough to donate $2,000 towards microchips, so we'll be doing some free microchips. And we're also working on getting sponsorships for vaccines. So we appreciate those donations, and we're looking forward to a great clinic for that. This is this is our dog of the week named Jackie. And then Percy is our cat of the week. I do want to make a few comments. So there was some confusion about the purpose of the old center and the new center. So the new center was never meant to replace the old center. We never said that in any of our dialogue that we said. This was a place to change and enhance the viewing of adoptable animals at the center. So what the new center did is make it a positive experience to come to the center and be able to see those animals that are there available for adoption. The old center was utilized as our medical facility. We are going through a transformation stage right now where we have animals available for adoption at the old center, and we have animals available for adoption at the new center. If anybody sees an animal they want to see, and it's at the old center, like they see those 35,000 something page views that we had on our webpage, all they do is they come and say, I want to see this animal, and we get the animal from our old center and bring it down, and you can view it. So they are available. We do have animals for adoption there. Now, I did have some individuals reach out and want to know and see animals there at the center, want to know what we can do to get them seen more. So I just got an email this morning because I presented to the team on Tuesday saying, what can we do to better make these available? And we reached out to our volunteers. And so our volunteer actually one of them came up with what I think is a good idea. And we're going to be looking into implementing when they can take tours and guide people through. Because I have staff cleaning and I have staff in both areas doing office work and both areas cleaning, as I said. So it's really hard to say, to give a set time, especially when some crews are cleaning 2 kennels instead of just 1. So the thought was, what if we can get a volunteer to come and do tours after a certain time when kennels are clean, just like we did before when the old center was open, that we can have people walk through and see the animals that are available for adoption there. I did speak to our kennel supervisor, and we are slowly emptying the old center. When cages or kennels come open, we are not filling them. However, there are some cases like an aggressive animal that we're for sure going to euthanize because of the huge aggression issues, but we have to hold it until it becomes our property. Yeah, we'll put it in an old facility kennel just for that 3-day stray hold period. And then afterwards we'll move forward, and then that kennel is vacant and we try not to fill it again. So those are some plans moving forward that we hope to implement. I am, again, thankful for the volunteer that thought of a problem solving and came forward, and I'm also thankful for the public that came and visited with me one-on-one, so I was able to hear those issues. So I appreciate that. And with that, I have any questions we have.
Questions from the board? Seeing none? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have committee reports. First, I'll turn to Board Member Bencomo, and I think probably Josh. We have some financial reports.
We do, Madam Chair, and actually it will be Michael Fascini who's presenting the financials here in just a second. I really appreciate his review. We went over the financials at our last committee meeting, and just want to remind everyone that we're alternating sites for those meetings monthly. This month we met at City Hall. Next month we'll be back at the Animal Service Center. But this month we went over the class and comp study from Mr. Longmire, had the opportunity to review that, discuss potential implementation issues, timing for the proposals that'll be coming and options that'll be coming forward to you. And then we, as I mentioned, we also reviewed the financials. We had an excellent analysis of this quarter's report. The way this is working is accounting is providing the information, their reports to the Animal Service Center, and then Michael is analyzing those numbers and helping us to understand where we stand and where there are any issues or concerns. And so he'll be coming up to talk about that in just a sec. Just want to let you know an update on the joint powers agreement that was passed by both the city and the county. That has gone to Department of Finance and Administration legal at the state early this month. So it's been about 3 weeks. I'm requesting an update on that. They did confirm receipt of all the documentation that I submitted, and so certainly we are awaiting their approval so that we can put the changes into place that were outlined in that document. I do recommend that perhaps the executive committee have a discussion related to that transition, particularly for board membership for the under the new JPA, so that we're prepared once we get that approved by the Department of Finance and Administration. And then with that in mind, the new JPA, I have also started working with our land management department here at the city to develop a lease between the city and the Animal Service Center for the facilities. We don't have one in place, but the JPA does call for that. So we're working through what that looks like, what the market value of the properties are, and then what services could be provided to the community as an offset to that market value for the lease. So we are still reviewing that in-house with myself, facilities, risk management, legal, and then we'll be working with the Animal Service Center and the county on that proposed document. So that'll be coming forward in the future. And I don't know if there are any questions. Otherwise, I was going to introduce Michael to have him come up and do the financial report.
Please,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michael Fashini with the Animal Services Center. I'm going to make a very short presentation, which should look familiar to all of you. It's really not much different from what has been done in the past, but with the help from my friends in accounting, and a special thanks to Josh Saffel that helped to make this a rather seamless transition. I'm just going to go over the various slides that I have here to present the financials that are representative of the performance for the period ended December 31st of 2023. Statement of net position, and keep in mind, I am not a true blood accountant, so I speak more from a financial and budgeting bent. But I'll try to answer any questions. And for those that I don't have the answers to, I have my backup in Josh, and I'm sure he can probably provide you a greater detail should you need that. Cash for the period was $1.295 million, no receivables. The accounts payable in the negative $6,232, and you can see the liabilities and revenues collected in advance with unassigned balance of $965,000. Which brings the total liabilities and fund balance equal to the total assets of $1.295 million. Breaking it down a little further, contributions from both localities, the county and the city. As you can see, 1.176, basically, and a few dollars difference between the two localities. Other revenue of 192,100 brings the total revenue to 2.545 million. When you break down the expenditures into the categories that have been used in the past, which include salary, benefits, temporary services, supplies, and all other expenditures category, which is a catch-all for everything that doesn't fall within the above-named categories. The total expenditures was $1.8 million. As you can see, a bit less than the amount of revenue that was received for the same period. This further breaks down the information presented in the previous slide, but shows the difference between the actuals that were earned, collected, or spent in December, comparing it to the total fiscal year 24 budget. Keep in mind that the budget parameter for the period through December is 50%. If you look at the percent of the budget column, your amount of revenue collected was above that parameter, and the total expenditures, which is coming to a total of 1.8 million at 30%, is certainly less than the 50% parameter that we established for the 6 months ending December. This is just a quick snapshot of trends of expenditures versus revenues. You'll note that at the beginning of the year in July, the $924,000 is higher because there's a higher contribution percentage by both localities at the front end of the process, and then that levels out over the next 11 months where the contributions are the same August through June. Expenditures at the beginning of the year tend to be always less, $146,000, and that moves up as we move throughout the fiscal year. And what I've noticed in past years is that trend line will probably increase as we go into the January through June timeframe. A lot more expenditures are made in the second half than there are in the first half. So therefore, the gap between revenues and expenditures will decrease over time. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you bringing it. And as a friendly reminder to folks who have been on the board or are new to the board, we used to have monthly financial reports. That was a lot, so now we've shifted to quarterly, which will align with our future board meeting schedule as well. So just as a quick update for that, how that's been moving. So thank you. Any questions? Hearing and seeing none, thank you very much.
One thing I would like to mention before I leave, this presentation is pretty much standard of what we've had in the past. If you find that there's something that you would like to add, modify, change, whatever, let me know, and we can make this presentation give you what you're looking for.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the finance report, I think. Next up, we would have the executive report. Chair Commissioner Sanchez isn't here this morning, so I don't know if we have any things to add from the conversations of the executive committee, but hearing none. And then the next report would be a facilities report, which was previously represented by board member Gandara, who's not serving on the ASCMV board anymore. Clint, I'm not sure if you have any things that you want to bring up from the facilities, or Chris also. Did you?
I was not.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Clint Thacker, Executive Director, Animal Services. We did have a meeting, Mary Lou and I met, we discussed some of the issues there at the center, but my notes are gone. Do you have any recollection? I know we talked a lot about, the tops of the kennels that we currently don't have. We are working with Baca Fence to become vendors with the city because they're the ones who, with the contractor, worked on all the fencing at the center. So it made sense to stay with that individual, and he also gave us a great price on it. This is down from the $63,000 that we got before. So he was able to discount that. Then there was issues with our washers and dryers, the brand new ones. We are currently in strenuous discussions with the contractor because the manufacturer of the washing machine says that it should be installed on a pedestal, and then the contractor is saying they installed it per spec through the blueprints. So it's discussions there that are happening back and forth. Every time they come out and fix it, what's happening is the anchors that anchors it to the bottom are shaking loose, and then they vibrate badly and damage the motherboard of the washing machine. So the tech has to come out, replace the motherboards, parts. It's a whole big process that is becoming an issue for sure. So we are working with them on resolving that. I do, however, want to say that the contractor has been fantastic to work with multiple warranty issues. It's a really good process about sending an email to warranty and CCing some people, and then that same day they usually have somebody addressing it, or at least a ticket is created. This has been valuable because we have had some issues with our doors there, whether the locking mechanisms or actual doorknobs. So it's all part of a brand new building getting used and broken in and identifying areas for to be fixed. But that's the information I have. Is there anything else, Mary Lou?
I've got on here that the kennel tops were going to cost $23,000. Baca Fence was not a vendor, but you were giving them the packet to become one. And then, of course, small issues at the center that were going to be addressed. And then, of course, the issues on the washer and dryer, that you were going to get someone to work on them. That's what I've got on my notes.
Okay, sounds like we got it all. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of our reports and presentations. Thank you, Clint. Next up, we have a few board logistical things to follow up on, particularly election of officers, committee member appointments, and our February meeting date and time, which I think is in question for, I'm not sure why exactly it's in question.
Madam Chair, it overlaps with the South Central Solid Waste Authority meeting that a majority of your board members are on.
Okay.
Yes.
Did it officially?
Madam Chair.
Wednesday? Did it? Okay.
Okay. So we will talk about that when it comes up, but okay. Sounds like we might be okay.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, please.
we might want to postpone or table action on electing officers. I'm anticipating that this board is going to be completely restructured within a relatively short period of time. I'm not quite clear why to go forward unless it's that traditional practice of rotating between the city and the county, but the only concern I have related to the approval of the State Board of Finance on the JPA is that it's the legislative session's occurring right now, and maybe everybody's attention is focused on that. But I think a call up there would probably get a JPA approved pretty quickly. And at that point, then we would be reconstituting the makeup of the board. And at that point, I think it would be more appropriate to determine officers and see who is actually going to be on the board.
I think that sounds like a great thing, and Manny isn't here to protest, so all the better.
Mm-hmm. So I would move that we table that item related to elections of officers until the board is reconstituted.
Okay, and this is item 6.1, so you have moved that we table that?
Second, Graham.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion or items to consider? Go ahead, please.
Clint Thacker, Executive Director. My question is that the bylaws state that this is done. Does anything need to be done by the board, like to make a motion to have the positions stay as they are until such time, or do we just move forward without doing anything like that?
I think if we have considered the election of officers and have moved to table it, that seems to fulfill the obligation for the conversation, as far as in my estimation.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
especially the pending changes.
Excellent.
I think
Just wanna
that
be sure.
this conversation counts for that,
Thank
for
you.
that future plan. So any other discussion, concerns?
Do we actually have a transition plan for how this is going to occur and how we're going to fulfill the JPA once it gets approved?
No, I think that's something that the executive committee needs to have a conversation about. So-
Okay.
And actually, the next item is committee member appointments. And this is actually something that we should follow up on because of folks who have already left. So this part we do need to.
Take action on.
Yeah,
Yes,
because that will help fully constitute the executive committee and address the facilities committee as well. So this is really, so the next item, committee member, well, sorry, we have to vote to table this discussion item. Please.
Board Member Macias,
Yes.
Board Member Sheila Hernandez,
Yes.
Board Member Graham,
Yes.
Chair Curran.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have committee member appointments. And again, this isn't something that we typically have official action on. This is, folks just get assigned to committee members and the committees that exist. And I believe that the committees will shift again with the JPA, but for the moment, there are spots that have been vacated by former Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, including on the executive committee. She is vice chair of the ASCMV, and then also she was the main elected liaison to the facilities committee. So I'm not sure if anyone would like to volunteer who's here to fill those spots for the moment.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and fulfill that spot until the JPA is approved.
So you're up for joining the executive committee and the facilities committee.
Oh.
I'll do facilities.
Okay.
I like how you did that. Okay, I will fulfill the role on, this is the worst mic. I will fulfill the role on the executive committee until the JPA is approved. And you'll take facilities?
And yes, Board Member Graham, hereby swear.
Okay, and I think that covers, I'm pretty sure that covers each of the positions that have been vacated for the
Well,
moment.
Does it say anywhere that actually the vice chair has to be a member of the opposite?
I don't think that it explicitly says that in
No,
the
okay. Yeah, no,
bylaws.
that's fine.
No.
I will do that.
Actually, it doesn't, I don't think it has very many rules about that switching. I think we've just always sort of practiced that. I don't know that that's part of our official bylaws, so Councillor Graham will be the representative on the facilities, so taking the place of Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, and then on the executive committee, as we are continuing sort of the way things are, Commissioner Sanchez will still be the chair, and Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez will be the vice chair, represented on the executive committee. So I think that will cover those bases for the upcoming at least few meetings that we have before the JPA goes into effect. And I think we can commit on the executive committee to having a transition plan for the February meeting, sort of some ideas for how to make that happen. So we'll work together to come up with some that. See, this is what happens, Commissioner Sanchez, when you're absent, just as a note. Okay, moving on to item 6.3, the February meeting time. It sounds like there was a conflict, but it's been resolved? What? It's really a discussion item. We just put people on those boards. It's not a voting item.
Yes, so
I'm sorry to interrupt, the Clint Thacker again. I believe we're talking about two different things. I think the crossover is in March, because Patrick called and we talked about it, and we talked about a later start date. Go ahead.
No, to my knowledge, it was for, so we had two different conflicts because of city budget retreat, and then we needed to work that into the rescheduling, but the way it is standing on my calendar is that SCSWA will meet on Wednesday, February 21st, and the regular board meeting of ASCMV would be Thursday, February 22nd.
That's what I have as well.
So it sounds like,
That's not.
it sounds like we have it sorted.
And the city budget retreat was moved to earlier, right? So that's
I believe
not
that's the 15th and
Prior
16th.
week, that's correct.
So I think we're good.
Okay, and then if it's, go ahead, please. You mentioned March.
Yes, so the other thing is we were contacted by the city stating that this room is not available on the February meeting at 9 a.m. So I can verify that, and I can get back and get to the board, but that was my understanding is why we needed to get a new time for February.
Okay. Please.
And
Board Member Pinkel.
yes, that is correct. There's a leadership program presentations happening at this time in chambers, but so I'm not sure if we could just swap venues for that meeting and keep the same date and time, or if we need to actually reschedule.
Yeah, we've done that before as well, so.
Our first choice would usually be going to the county just because they can offer the same broadcast ability. So let's suggest that we keep the same date and time and go to the county, and we may have to reconsider and revisit if we don't have a location. The part of our venue issue is the broadcasting capacity. So if does that work for you all?
Yes, ma'am, we'll look
Okay.
into that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's still on the radar and somewhat unresolved, it sounds like, for February. Okay. That's the end of the discussion items. Seeing nothing from any other board members. Up next is the action item. This is Resolution 2024-01, a resolution to accept the $42,420 award from the State of New Mexico Animal Care and Facility Fund for spay and neuter services and adjust the FY24 adopted budget accordingly with that.
So in your packets, you'll find the Exhibition A.
Sorry, let me get a motion.
Oh,
Madam
to
Chair,
approve, Graham.
I move the adoption of Resolution 2024-01.
It's been moved by Board Member Graham and seconded by Board Member Macias. Go ahead, Clint.
Sorry about that. I just want to let you know that this is a grant we applied for some time ago. This is the funds that come from the pet food tax that they call it, but it's not really tax. That was passed in the legislature a couple years ago. They have cleared up some legal issues, and they were able to distribute some of the funds. The ASCMV was the big winner on this one. We were very happy that we were able to get that amount for it, and it goes specifically for spay and neutering. And primarily our grant was geared towards feral cats. So that's going to give us that funding, the extra funding that we were requesting for that. So move forward, hopefully to accept that.
Any questions from the board? No? Seeing none? Becky, if we could have a vote?
Board Member Macias?
Yes.
Board Member Shelo Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Graham?
Yes.
Chair Karan? Motion passes.
I'm sending this down for you all to sign as a note. Okay, next up, thank you for those of you in the public who have borne with us during this time. Next up is public input, and I just want to get a quick survey of how many of you plan to speak right now for public input. Please raise your hands if you are going to speak for public input. Okay, that's about half a dozen or 8 or so. All right, I will use the traditional method of going through the room, and you have about 3 minutes. I'm not going to use the official timer, but I will be sort of looking after you to hope that you'll expedite your comments if you get past 3 minutes. So I'll starting on the first row and going up my left, so this side of the room first, and then I'll shift over to this room, which is primarily staff. So Kathy, please make your way down. Just as a note, when you speak, please make sure that you state your name for the record for public comment, and you can move the podium up and down or the mic. So
That was
thank
one
you.
of my first purchases for the city was this podium.
Good morning.
Good morning, I'm Kathy Stark. Here is Kathy Stark, and here is Animal Advocates for Change. I got to tell you, it's a lot warmer to watch this on the video from home than it is to sit in this room. I actually had two items, but given the first presentation on the classification study, now I have added a third, and that has to do, if I understood correctly, the class and comp, you're looking at the following budget year. Am I correct?
So, first of all, just as a note, typically we can't respond in
Oh, that's right.
public
I'm sorry.
comment,
I'm sorry.
but
I know
I
that.
think that there is the potential for an immediate mid-year adjustment, potentially, depending on what they look at. And then, yes, definitely for the following budget year, the majority of those things would be under consideration. So, but
Thank you.
just as a note, generally for public comment, we don't respond back. So,
I know that.
yes.
So why did I ask the question?
So, thanks.
Because I'm cold. And my reason for asking that question is, and going back through the old minutes, it appears that the veterinary position was posted in June of 2021. And we brought this up with the city council numerous times, and the need to fill that position. Now, from our opinion, the county's ordinance is much better than the city's, but they're both lacking when it comes to getting control of the reproduction of animals. And I was looking at that El Paso Animal Services, and their full-time vet is 164,170, and so I really hope that we're considering something mid-year to try and recruit somebody who could help us out, because it's a hard-to-fill position. The second one, and my apologies to Clint, but I'm sometimes confused about what comes to the board, what goes to Clint, but there's two items on my list that affect more than me, so I thought I'd bring them here. So my apologies in advance if I should have brought them there. And one of those was a couple of months ago, Jerry provided Clint, and we've talked about this at city council meetings, with a list of veterinarians who Diane from AFC reached out, trying to look for people who could help us, looking at what they did up with Shannon up at Hart, New Mexico, where she pulled in vets who just come in, they do a clinic, and then they go back. And I know that some members of the board are aware of that list. I don't know if everybody is, but I think it's an action item that we'd like to know if anything's been done with that list to try and get people in here to help us. The other item that I'd like Clint to maybe respond to, and this again, it affects more than me, which is why I wanted it on the record here. Mayura, who's the community cat manager, had posted on the ASCMV site that for TNR cats, you know, I would go in, I would pay to have them spayed, neutered, vaccinated, and chipped, and they would be chipped to the shelter. And I reached out right away and I said, no, my cats need to be chipped to me, because under the ordinance, if I'm going to take responsibility as a caregiver, it also says I'm going to take some responsibility for not only food, shelter, and water, but necessary veterinary care. And then we had an exchange, and there were concerns about I would be liable for nuisance issues, and I explained that no, the ordinance makes it clear I'm not an owner, I'm a caretaker. The easy fix, I thought, was to change the heading in the template of Shelter Love on the medical record where it says owner, to have it say owner caretaker, and I've communicated with Shelter Love, and they said, sorry, we can't do that right now. I don't want to pay for the cats that I'm taking care of and have them shipped to the shelter. And so I would like to know why the change was made. I know for one of the rescues, the discussion has been had, and they were told they would continue to chip to that rescue, who's doing TNR, not adoption, they're doing TNR. So I think there needs to be a consistent rule across the board, whatever that is. I'm not gonna pay for cats and then have them chipped to the shelter is my bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, and in the same row, please make your way up.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Hain.
Good
I
morning.
am an animal activist here. I also am in the process of developing a nonprofit. It'll be called Animal Spaces. And we, as our mission, is to try to divert animals to keep them out of the shelter, not land them there. So the vast majority of the animals that I transport to Delaware, Missouri, Ohio, those areas going more towards the northeast. But I've kind of been pulled back into this shelter thing. I was there a couple weeks ago, and we went in to look at the new shelter. To be honest, I never walked all the way through the old shelter because I generally do not pull animals from the shelter. But I went in and was surprised to find that there were 116 dogs in the new portion of the shelter. There were about 349 that day, which is pretty much what it is right now, which means over 2/3 of the animals are still in the old shelter. I've witnessed very few empty spots down in the new building, which, by the way, is lovely. It's gorgeous. However, when we needed to see animals from the old building, we were told that the only thing we could do is ask them, and if they had time, they would bring an animal down for us to see. There's a couple of problems with this, big problems. One is those animals, from the side of the animals, from the side of the people visiting, from the side of the shelter workers. So we did that day. We then made an appointment, went in and spoke to Mr. Thacker. We had a good discussion about it. At that time, he indicated the reason we could not go in the old portion. Evidently, this is one big shelter, so it's not an old shelter and a new shelter. It's a shelter. But we couldn't go into the old building because they didn't have adequate staff to clean it in time for the public to go through it. I find that kind of a little bit of a problem because you're telling me you can't clean it enough for me to walk through it, but it's okay for the animals to live in it. Since then, we've gone through a couple different phases. Yesterday, when we were there really were very few people in the shelter, and we asked to see a total of 8 dogs. It took 2 hours to pull a dog down, see the dog, they'd go back and get another dog, and there had to be one person working with us the whole time. There's roughly 200, a little more. I think some of I'm never sure if that total number includes the ones in foster. But there's somewhere around 200 dogs in the old portion. If it takes 2 hours to see 8, it takes about 64 hours to see all of them. If I walk through the building, I can view all of them in probably 2 hours. But one of the funny things here is, in addition to evidently he needs additional funds for cleaning, which is really important, because I think that being the reason for not being in the building, but then being told, well, you need to have somebody tour you through the building. I don't understand that. That building was open before. It was open to the public. It was open for them to walk in. I've personally never been in it, but there are a lot of people who have. One of the dogs we pulled on that day was this little girl. Her name is Bo Peep. She had been at the shelter for 5 months. So one of the dogs we were asked to look at, and we were asked to look at this dog by a volunteer at the shelter. Volunteers don't seem to think that they can bring forth problems, so they call us and say, could you ask to see this dog? The dog came down. She's been out now for about a week. She's gained a little weight. Some of the scars are healing. She has scars on her ears, scars on her back, scars on the back of her legs. She was extremely thin, and when you compare those 2 pictures, the one was on intake, there were no scars. She looked to be a healthy weight. And when we saw her, we didn't know how long she'd been there, and my immediate thought was, this dog may have been out in the desert, getting stuck in the mesquite bushes, whatever. Then I discovered This happened to her in the shelter, and she's up in that building. The public needs to be able to walk through that building, not make appointments, not have a tour guide. It was open before. Why can't it be open now? If there's not enough staff to do that, it needs to happen. We were told, well, we have it in the budget for next year. The next year's July. We're going to have a kitten explosion between now and then. June last year, 502 animals were euthanized in our shelter. And we can't wait to see these animals, pick animals that we can help get to rescue. Until then, it's too long and the animals are suffering. She's a great girl. There's nothing aggressive about her. We were told, well, she slipped through the cracks. Did she slip through the cracks and get these injuries because she's up in a building where nobody's visiting? In addition...
Ms. Hain, your time is up. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to say we need that building open.
Thank you. Additional folks from the second row, please. Please, come on up, come on up.
Good morning, Board. Mr. Macias. Good morning, everybody. My name is Renee Chavez, and I'm here just to bring some of my concerns. I am a community advocate for the animals, and I don't know if you recall, but my grandson was one of them. I'm training him for volunteer for the shelter eventually. I've got 4 grandchildren that I'm raising. My concerns are that the fosters, because we've got quite a few fosters, be allowed. Apparently, it's been coming up to where fosters are not allowed to adopt their fosters. So what I'm presenting is, why not allow them? Let's make some positive changes with that. Implement those in the handbook, because I understand there's a lot of changes that have been taking place, and this is one of the good ones, I think, that would help with finding homes, because a lot of the fosters want to be able to keep them, and they're being told they can't keep them because a rescue from out of state has called and wants to take them. So let's give the fosters the first right to adopt. And we'd like to see that, thank you. We'd like to see that in the handbook, as well as, I know that there's a foster coordinator as well, but she's only one person, and I imagine that's quite a big job. Why not have more than one, or have her be more accessible? And I'm just presenting these things because they need to be addressed. These are just different. We work together. It does take a village to work out all the different little fragments. So that is actually what I'm presenting here. We'd like to see this implemented in the handbook, if we could, and then this makes room for another dog to be transported, one that doesn't have to be euthanized, and then it also, why not keep it in the foster's home? Give them the first ability, the first right to choose before accepting, or before telling a rescue, okay, we're going to give you this dog. Let's call the foster first. Do you want to adopt this dog or cat or whatever it is that they want to adopt? So that's why I'm here today, so that we can have this put into the handbook. That's why I'm presenting it to the board. And my apologies, Mr. Thacker. I will try to schedule meetings with you as well in the future. I do have quite a busy schedule. As I said, I have 4 grandchildren that I'm raising, 2 through 10 years of age. So they do keep me busy, but they are going to be productive volunteers eventually. And hopefully you'll get this implemented in the handbook. This is what we would like to see. And I know I've heard it through a lot of people in the community, and I'm asking them also to, come and give their input as well. So we'd like to see this happen. I'd like you to consider that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Second row, please.
Good morning. My name is Bridget Burris, and there's a couple of things that I want to address. When I hear all you guys speaking about your goals and everything, nobody's talking about how do we get to a no-kill status. That needs to be addressed. I mean, Las Cruces and our community is growing, but yet Clint told us that all the animals at one point are going to be housed in the new shelter. How can that be? That means that we're going to have to euthanize more animals to get them all in the new shelter. It was built smaller than the shelter we had. Makes no sense. I understand there was financial restraints, but now we're going to have to, if we do this right, we're going to have to use the old shelter because we are not a shrinking population, but a growing population. Another thing is that I visited with the Espanola animal shelter. They have every week 12 days of veterinary care. They have a population of 45,000. We have, I believe, 5 days of veterinary care, and we have maybe a population of 120,000. That doesn't make sense. So we need a veterinarian terrible up there. We need more veterinary days. And then spay and neuter, we really need to get on this. This is the thing that will help our county not to be euthanizing, for heaven's sakes. Let's aspire to something greater.
Thank you. Second row. Any others? Third row, fourth row, fifth row. I'm going quickly. I see you. I see you. So, yeah, she's skipping, yes. But please come down. If you're going to be next, please come on down. If you are able, please come down and sit. It's okay. You'll both get your chance. Thank you. I'm not going to say race. Okay. Thank you.
I'd just like to do a real thank you
Please,
all, members.
State
Gene
your name.
Wilkins.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all for the board and committees, and sir. I just want to add one more thing. The bureaucracy of spade and neuter makes it difficult for individuals. They get too much with the paperwork and the bureaucracy. I really like to see a much simpler program to get pets, whether you're low income or middle income, to get pets spayed and neutered. We got to do something better for that, and I hope you can do that, to add on what that lady said. But this is an atrocity. The vets that we have are overwhelmed. It takes 3 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer. We got to have a more better program for transparency to get pets neutered. I don't want to hear if you're low income, middle income, have a flat rate established, because people are not going $200 or $300 to get a pet fixed or neutered. So if there's something that you all could do, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Please state your name.
Good morning. Thank you. Marianne Costa. I'm a concerned citizen of 3 years. I moved here from a county in Albemarle County, Virginia, where it took them 10 years, but the entire county and all of its shelters did become no-kill. The amount of animals seen on the road and causing a ruckus between trained pets and strays was diminished incredibly, and our animal control resources were better spent educating the population and requiring licensing and microchipping on an annual basis to help make sure that the public was as involved as they could be in helping take care of the problem. Since I've lived here, my family, we've rescued 7 dogs and 3 cats, and most of them are still with us. So I applaud the efforts that these foster care people are doing and the rescues are doing to try to offset the impact on the shelter by trying to keep as many of them out. I did see the old building before the new building was opened, and I understand what Mr. Thacker is saying about the old building being used for medical reasons. However, I think that only a portion of that building should be for medical, and the rest of it should be to take care of the overflow of animals that come in and need to be seen, adopted, or reclaimed by owners that have lost their animals. I do believe that is possible. I understand, too, that I heard there was an issue about being able to keep the place clean. Well, the budget is getting better, and there's more money flowing in. Maybe outsourcing or subcontracting basic cleaning can go to a subcontractor for a while we're trying to build up our resources and personnel. I think that it is very difficult for anyone who wants to help and adopt animals to be able to pick 2 out of a book. If those aren't automatic fits, then they have to come back another day, take time off from work, which impacts their ability to afford to take care of multiple animals or have pets in their home. So the idea of them having to flip through a book in order to be able to see who's in the old building is a little bit of a waste of time and resources, because it does involve the personnel needing to be available to walk them through. And if it was just an open area in the back as well, in the old building as well as in the front, I think that we would see very quickly the amount of adoptions increase. So thank you for your time. Have
Thank
a
you
good
for
day.
speaking. Good morning. Thank you. Other folks on this side of the room? Are you sure? Okay, I'll move to this side. I see staff. Did you want to speak? Yes, if you wouldn't mind waiting till the end of public comment, we can bring you up and maybe give some. Anyone in the next rows? Moving back. Anyone back, please? Come down. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Janine Trujillo. I'm a citizen. I have rescued animals, the most recent being September, I believe. And when I went to the shelter, the new portion wasn't open, of course, and we were free to walk through what seemed like an endless maze of kennels, which is, it had multiplied since the last time I had been there. I couldn't tell you how many years that had been. We went looking for a puppy that we had seen online, and it was in a foster, had no way to see it. So we just asked if we could walk through. We found a dog that was so emaciated that we were afraid he wouldn't make it through the night. We immediately decided he needed us. We went out, did the adoption paperwork. We were called that night by the vet saying he didn't realize how bad he was and would have to put him on special nutritional needs. He was worse than Bo Peep was if you saw those pictures. He's now probably 60, 70 pounds, never has growled, has a perfect personality, and just loves being loved. We need somebody to be able to see those dogs to know that there aren't the ones that are being overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Okay, thank you. Then that concludes public comment. Did you want to come up and, did you want to come up first? Please.
Hello.
Good morning. Thank you for coming up.
Good morning. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Vanessa Chastain. I'm the foster coordinator with the Animal Service Center. So I wanted to come today to answer any questions or concerns that people had about the foster program. So I listened to everybody today and I could address some of the questions that they have. Okay. So I did want to address the question about fosters not being allowed to adopt their animals. And about it being in the foster handbook, I do have a section in here. It says the foster parents are generally provided the opportunity to adopt their animals in their care after having fostered the animal for 3 months or longer. The adoption of any animal in foster care must go through the usual ASCMV adoption process with all applicable forms and fees. ASCMV makes final decisions regarding the adoption of any foster animal. ASCMV retains the ownership of all animals in the foster program. Therefore, we do not promise rehome or adopt a foster animal without the center's approval. So I always let fosters know they do have the opportunity to adopt the animals. What we had come across is most of the fosters realize they're so attached to the animals until our rescue coordinators put in a lot of time and effort trying to get these animals out to rescue. And so a lot of the fosters at that time say, I'm interested in adopting my foster, is this okay? So what we try to tell them is, let us reach out to the rescue, see if it's okay if they could adopt their animal. It depends on the rescue if what their plans are for this animal already. If the rescue says yes, they could go ahead and adopt the animal, we'll allow them to adopt the animal. If the rescue says we have intentions for this animal to go to certain placements, we will allow the animal go to that rescue. So what me and Dr. Haddon and the rescue coordinators had came up the other day to help allow fosters another opportunity to adopt their fosters. We're working on an agreement to give the fosters a last opportunity to adopt their fosters before they are fully committed to this rescue. So that way they could have a chance to adopt their foster or deny adopting their foster and allowing it to go to the rescue. If they say, no, I do not want to adopt the foster, I would like to go to rescue, and I could continue to foster and help save more lives of animals that way. With our next upcoming rescue transports, fosters will be given the opportunity to adopt, and then they will sign the agreement whether they want to adopt it or let it go to rescue. I would hope that the fosters will like to continue to foster to help continue to make an impact on animals and continue to have that space available in their home to continue to foster. The main purpose of fostering is to help an animal provide a temporary home environment and allowing it to move on and get adopted or sent to rescue. So I wanted to address that and let them know that we are working on it and we are listening, but I'm always here to answer anybody's concerns about the foster program. Just call the main center phone number, make an appointment. I'm here, and we're here for the animals. Also, I wanted to say someone had wanted the live release rates to be addressed and help us get to that 90% total or goal. We could utilize the foster homes and allowing more animals going into foster. So more the community helps the ASCMV. I could send more animals into foster, and that will help increase our live release rate. So if we have more fosters in that helped us before and new fosters coming in, that's why I'm always trying to do different programs, a sleepover, foster orientations, allowing appointments every day that I'm in the center. I'm trying these opportunities to increase the foster program so we could help save more lives of the animals. So that's what I wanted to say today.
Thank you, Vanessa. And Vanessa, I really appreciate you listening and coming and sort of speaking to this, which I think is a big issue that the community has brought forward. I also just want to point out that you all are working very hard. The folks who are working on transfers are working very hard. The fosters are working really hard to love their animals and keep them out of the shelter. The goal is of all of those groups is the same, and I really appreciate you prioritizing addressing this which is fundamentally a communication issue, formally and in a systematic way. And I know that you've done a lot of that, Vanessa. So thank you, and we appreciate you. So thanks for speaking.
Perfect. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Clint Thacker, Executive Director of the Animal Service Center. I just want to be clear on a few points that I heard as well. So the comment about from Kathy Stark about chipped cats to caregiver or center, some caregivers do not want their information associated with those cats because of some fear that something might be connected with it. So all it needs to happen is some communication. So Kathy can just contact us, say, I want these cats in our name when she brings them in for sterilization. That's just a change in our system. That's easily done. So just needs to say that she wants the cats in her name, and we can do that ad. But she's in the minority. I would say the general people that I have talked to do not want those cats in their name. I want to say that to Bridget Burris that stood up, we have a full-time veterinarian on staff right now. She is called our medical director. She's a licensed veterinarian in the state of New Mexico. We have surgeries probably close almost every work day of the week and sometimes on weekends when we have contracted vets come in. So all of our animals are under veterinarian care at all time currently right now. The comment about the staffing level and cleaning. So currently right now, we do meet a minimum standard of care, the minimum of per hour set by the veterinarian board. But that's with everybody coming in when they're supposed to be there. Every single day, I would say, we have a person call off or call in sick or can't make it for some reason in some aspect of the center somewhere. With the highest number of employees we have are the animal caregivers. That's generally where it's at. So and then somebody has to fill in that person's spot. So somebody does 2 kennels and so on. Before the old center, we were not open all the time for people to come in. If you remember, we opened adoptions at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when cleaning was done. So then people could come in. It was only just the last probably 6 months, 7 months of the old center being open that we allowed people just to walk in. And that was only in, I believe it was 2 kennels, 3. Maybe it was 3 kennel areas. So we're working with the management team to get back to that level. We currently are filling positions at for animal caregiver. I know we have some empty positions, and it's in the final. I think one person starts towards the end of the month. We have some new people already on, so it's just a continual process for that. I think that was all that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do just want to mention the volunteer coordinator, Samira. So she's been really doing a ton of work speaking to folks who are trying to solve problems. And in her case, as a volunteer, she's making that happen. So I really want to give a specific shout out to her as well in those conversations. So thank you, Clint. That's the end of public comment. Next up is chair and board comments. Please go ahead, Board Member Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary Lou Ward, I just wanted to comment real quick. I know we had a lot of concerns about the spay and neutering, and we all know animal control responds to a lot of stray calls every day, every month, every year for animals that are out there. Not only do they respond to the stray calls for animals, they pick up a lot of strays, and those animals go into the Animal Services Center of Mesilla Valley, or they go somewhere. So spay and neutering those animals is very important, because the goal is the less, more animals that are spayed, the less likely they are to roam around. That's the idea. I kind of want to brag a little bit about Doñana County, because we have been in partnership with the SNAP program for several years now on spay and neutering animals in Doñana County for the constituents of Doñana County for some time. And that has been going very well for us for this last fiscal year. So that's from June till December so far. Doñana County has fixed 386 animals in the municipality of Doñana County, so out of the municipality, so not in the Las Cruces area. In addition to that, they have vaccinated 246 animals for rabies vaccination and microchip 116 animals. That's just this fiscal year. That's not the years prior to that, or the year prior to that, or that. So Doñana County is making an enormous effort to try to get out into these rural areas and vaccinate, microchip, and neuter and spay these animals so that we can get them back to and keep them in the community where they belong and out of the Animal Services Center. In addition to that, Mr. Macias has been working diligently with us to try to help us get a veterinarian on board. We actually are making progress. We had an interview set yesterday. They had an emergency. We have an interview reset for tomorrow for a veterinarian to come on board for us to go back out in a rural area and do spay and neuters. So that is hopefully coming soon. So we are trying to make leaps and bounds for this. So Doñana County is working hard for that. That's my comment. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Please, go ahead.
Let me just follow up just a little bit, and thank you, Mary Lou, for those comments. We are very close and have been discussing a potential pilot project, but we've been talking about that for quite some time. But we believe that we may be able to enter into an agreement with a veterinarian to do mobile unit-related spay and neuter. Probably it would start in the southern part of the county, because that would be more attractive to the veterinarian that we're having discussions with. But we're hoping to utilize that, and the goal is really to do enough spay and neuter operations to really be able to document the diminishment of the number of animals that are being picked up by our animal control officers. And just so that everybody knows, although we've discussed it many times in the past, the ultimate goal is to have mobile clinics throughout the county on a very routine basis, and that's why we have been attempting to recruit a veterinarian that will undertake that on a full-time basis.
Thank you. Other board members? No? Board Member Chateau Hernandez? No? Board Member Graham? No? Okay. Thank you. That's the end of board comments. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Shalja Hernandez.
Second, Graham.
Becky, please.
Board Member Macias? Board Member Shayla Hernandez.
Yes.
Board Member Graham.
Yes.
Chair Coran.
Yes.
Passes.